Does your child have violent, aggressive outbursts? Have they hurt you, left bruises? Are you scared of them? Are you constantly walking on eggshells? This week we speak with Matt from Capa First Response about child on parent violence, and we cover three really important things. Why does it happen? Are you at risk of it? And what to do if you are experiencing violence in the home. Please, please, if you are experiencing violence and aggression from your child, keep watching so you can get the help that you need. So, welcome, Matt, and thank you for joining us today. I wonder if you could start off by telling me what is Capa First?
Okay, so Capa First Response is an organisation that was set up by our founder, Jane Griffiths. And it's an organisation that supports families who are experiencing child against parent violence and aggression. So where children are using harmful behaviours in the home against their parent or carer. So we support families with children up to the age of 25 if they are neurodivergent. Or otherwise up to the age of 18.
And
So
what services do you provide to parents? And what do you specifically do as well?
yeah, so I'm the senior practitioner for the organisation, and we we provide, pardon me, provide bespoke services. Basically, we work one-to-one with families. So we have various different, I guess, ways of supporting families. But so we have our main ways are our advice and support sessions, which are again they're one-to-one with the family, but they're shorter. They're about half an hour each, and we have three of those. Um, then we have our more in-depth support, which is again one-to-one with the family, but those are sessions of 50 minutes, and we can offer. We're not as limited in terms of the number of sessions we offer. We also offer parent and carer groups, which are small groups that are facilitated by myself and Jane, and potentially soon our other practitioners as well, because we're a growing team. Which is so there's small groups, and again we look at this behaviour. We seek to understand why it happens, and what parents can do to help reduce the harm in their home and improve their relationship with their child. And they've been really well received, because I think it's a really important thing for parents to be in a space with other parents who understand what they're going through, really.
100%, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because there's so much isolation and stigma around this behavior. Parents are too afraid to ask for help sometimes, because they've asked for help once before, and they've asked the wrong person, and they've been met with a load of, well, why aren't you doing this? And you're doing this wrong, and obviously it's your fault. You're a bad parent, and they don't ask for help they don't ask for help again. So to be in a closed group with a small other number of parents who really understand what it's like, who understand the challenges, there's no stigma, there's no shame, there's understanding.
And I'm guessing it might also feel safer. I mean, I know parents have expressed to me in the past that they're worried about, saying something to social workers or whatever, because they're worried they'll be, I mean, as you said, they'll be blamed, but where could that escalate to?
Of
And,
course, yeah. I
that
mean,
can be really scary. Whereas when you're with your peers, it probably just feels really safer if everyone's sort of saying the same thing.
yeah, that's it. And then it's easier to really explore what's going on, because you're right. Parents are very worried sometimes about talking with social services, because am I now, are you going to take my kids away from me? Are you going to tell me I'm a bad, unfit parent, and I can't, look after my children? I can't keep them safely, and obviously we talk about safety planning, and we do, it's a consideration we have. So, but it is a space where we understand the behavior, and we understand what parents are facing. Obviously we're facilitating it, but then we also, there's other parents in the room who've lived through it, who are living through it, who understand it, and it's an area, it is a safe space where people can feel comfortable to really explore what's going on, because it's complicated. It's families are systems, and everyone has a part to play in the solution. but everyone also has a part to play in the problem. And it's important that we can look at every side of it and go, right, well, I can maybe make adjustments here, and that's going to have an effect here and here and here, and so yeah, so that's been really well received. Or we also offer parent forums, which are a little bit more. We offer those. They're every 6 weeks currently. Anyone can drop in if they're on our waiting list. They can come and drop in, and we talk about the behaviour. And it's also, there's a question and answer section of that as well, which has been really useful for some parents. We producing podcasts, which some parents have found really helpful as well. Other resources on the website. So lots of different, which we're basically trying to find as many different ways of supporting families, make it as easy as possible for families to access support, because we know the challenges that the parents face in terms of finding that support and the barriers they face, and we just want to make it as easy as possible, to start having the conversations around this, and to feel, like they can ask for help, because we can help. There are things we can do in most instances that are really helpful, and the families can use, and we can start making those changes that lead to bigger changes that mean that this isn't an issue anymore. That means they don't have to ask for support from us.
Well, we'll put links to a lot of those resources on
Brilliant.
the description, and so people can see the full range. But what I want to do right now is just sort of delve into a little bit about what we mean by child and parent violence, because there will probably be people watching this who are like, yeah, absolutely, I'm struggling with this. But there may be other people who are just like, I don't really know
Yeah.
whether I fit this
Does this
definition. I
relate to
don't want
me?
anyone
Yeah.
to exclude themselves and miss out on all your essential resources. So how do we define child and parent violence?
So there can be, many things. It might be a child that's, well, but before I go into some of the specific behaviors, if you feel afraid of how your child may respond, then we're probably, you're probably in the right place here. If
And
you're,
when you say afraid, could that be like, I don't know whether I'm to say this because they may just have a meltdown, or I'm scared they're going to hit me?
it can be, look, so it may be, it can be violence, but we also say violence and aggression.
Mm.
There's lots of different definitions of this behavior. Some people call it child to parent abuse. It can be financial abuse. It can be,
That's with older children, is it?
yeah,
I assume? Yeah.
but then also younger children, they have access to credit cards, and
Right.
they may, it may be on a PlayStation, buying loads of V-Bucks, racking up massive bills. It it can be emotional, verbal. It's not necessarily limited to hitting, kicking. It may be spitting. It may be damaging property. It may be threatening to harm themselves, threatening to harm others. It may be, like I say, damaging property, damaging really, cherished items that the child knows that it has a real emotional significance. So it's a really wide scope. What we're
And
talking
would
about.
you say it's a wide range as well? Because I've talked a lot before about the violence that I experienced. My daughter was 3 years old, but I was left with bruises. But I know that I felt quite embarrassed a lot of the time because she's just little. But they can hurt you still. Would you
Absolutely, yeah.
still call that child on parent violence?
Yeah, I think it's we've worked with parents as young as, with children as young as 3. And I think, again, if you feel scared, if you feel that this doesn't feel safe, this doesn't feel right, I'm scared, then come and talk to us. Okay, because we would much prefer that someone comes and talks to us when their child is 3, 4, 5 years old, rather than living with this behavior, and perhaps patterns of behavior become more entrenched, and cycles of behavior become really normalized, because then by the time the child is 9, 10 years old, it gets more difficult. 14, 15, even more difficult potentially. So yeah, it can be as young as 3. It's really important that we understand where the behavior comes from, though, and that's what we're always trying to do at Capa, is is understand what is the why behind this behavior. Why are we seeing this? What's going on underneath? So the behavior is the thing we all focus on. This is happening, we need it to stop, and rightly so. But if we just focus on that and trying to stop it rather than trying to understand where it comes from, we may be able to stop this behavior here, but we'll likely just move it somewhere else. So when thinking about age, of a child of 3 years old, there may be different whys for them than a child that's 7 years old to a child that's 15. There are different drivers behind this behavior, and so we have to always think about that. What's at the root of it?
And I think it's quite useful to give a threshold for what is normal behavior, because lots of people have had a toddler or a preschooler that may have sometimes, slapped someone or bitten
Yeah,
someone. And when I realized that mine was different was because of the number of times it was happening during the day, like 5 or 6 times, and that they would last, her meltdowns, which were violent, would last half an hour or more. And
yeah,
I mean, do you think there's a framework where parents can
absolutely.
kind of say, we can say to parents, yeah, I mean, for me, it was like that feeling of walking on eggshells all the time. And I don't
Yeah.
know if you can give some kind of framework for parents to say, if you're experiencing this, this isn't normal.
I think, like you just said there, the feeling of walking on eggshells all the time. If that is how it feels to you, reach out, ask for support, talk to someone. I mean, it's hard to say definitively if A, B, and C happens, then yeah, this is child against parent violence and aggression. I think you will know by how it feels. If it feels scary, if it feels like you're walking on eggshells, the level of harm that is being done, the severity of it, reach out. I think also there's never
Yeah,
going
I
to be
think
an issue where someone comes to support like service like ours asking for support, saying this is what's going on, and we go, what are you talking about? That's fine. Like stop wasting us. If it feels like a problem to you, talk to us. We can support you with it.
I think that's such an important thing for you to say to parents, because I think some services, they do get that, some of the
Mm,
statutory services. And I think as a result, parents can gaslight themselves and say, oh, this is just normal. And I always say to parents, just trust that gut instinct, as
of
exactly
course.
as you said. If this doesn't feel right, and it's so good to hear that you're not going to turn someone away and say, nah, stop making
No,
fuss.
exactly. No, absolutely not. If it feels like that big of a problem, it is that big of a problem, because the impact that's going to have on you as a parent is then going to impact your relationship with your child as well. And then by it feeling like that much of a problem, even if you put family A next to family B and you go, well, this is much more serious than this one, right? But the impact it's having on your family, the impact that's having on the family dynamics, that's what we care about. That's what's important. And we need to make sure that people are able to manage on their own, and they feel supported, and they feel like they have the tools to know what's going on, to know what the best thing to do is to manage a really difficult situation, because that helps the parents feel more empowered. It helps the child to feel safer, to feel more contained, and uh, and it can also, a really important thing is it stops harmful narratives developing around the kind of relationship you have, the kind of child that your child is, the kind of parent you are. So yeah, really, I can't stress that enough. If it feels like a problem, it is a problem. So come and talk to us, because we'll be able to support you.
Great. Now, we've talked quite a bit about younger children, but let's talk a bit about older children. Now, I know when the children get a little bit older, whether that's sort of early or later adolescence,
Mm,
one of the things that I see coming up a lot is parents wondering if they should call the police.
yeah.
And I know some have,
Hmm.
and some haven't, and no judgment to whatever your choice is, but I'm curious on what your position on that is as an organizer.
Yeah. So our our position on calling the police is that that is an option to you available, and you should take it if you feel that you are in real danger. If you feel that if you can't keep everyone safe in your home, yourself, your children, then that is something that you should really seriously consider doing. I think it's really important to always say you should not call the police as a punishment, if you don't do this, or if you continue to do this, then I'm going to call the police, as a way of punishing the child.
Would that include it being a short? Some parents think I'll just shock them, and if I get the police around, it will shock them, and then they'll stop doing it. Would you include that under the kind of framework of?
Well, sometimes that shock can be something that, whew, okay, this is serious, and it can be useful in a way of disrupting a pattern and a cycle that is really harmful. Again, it's not because you want that child to suffer. You're bringing the police in because you're saying, if I can't keep everyone safe in this home, it doesn't mean that we're just not going to be safe. I'm still going to ensure that we are all safe, but I'm going to ask for support to do that. So I'm going to call the police, and they will come, and they will ensure that we are all safe in this home. And that's good for everyone. Okay, we all need to be safe here. Now, I think it's worthwhile having that conversation and saying, look, I don't want you to be arrested. I don't want you to be criminalized here. I'm not trying to punish you, but I am not going to accept us not being safe in this home. So I will call the police if I have to. It is useful if you feel that, because normally this is not an isolated instance. Normally this is patterns of behavior. If you feel that may be something that you're going to need to do, I would always encourage a parent or carer to call 101, the police non-emergency line, and have a chat with them and say, look, this is what's going on. Very often there are other contributing factors as to why this behavior is happening. A child may be neurodivergent, for example. Now, that's going to influence how officers maybe respond. I mean, we can't guarantee that people are going to be understanding and they're going to respond in the best possible way, but we can give ourselves the best chance of that happening. So by calling up ahead of time, 101, for example, and saying, this is what's going on at home. I'm calling you because I want you to come and keep us safe. I want you to, hopefully, and it may be as well, that often that introduction of another person into the home. So sometimes people have family friends or neighbors that they can call on when things are getting really difficult, that introduces that other dynamic that can stop things from escalating.
This is reminding me a little bit of, I'm an NVR informed parent.
Exactly.
And we have the supporters that sometimes we encourage them to come in and have the conversation. So
exactly,
and same thing, it's another adult coming in. So you could try it first with one of your supporters.
Perfect. Yeah.
And getting them to have a conversation. And then if that doesn't work, you could then go to the police. So there could be a kind of midway point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's it, kind of thing. And I guess it's if you don't have those supporters, if you don't have anyone else that you can call on. So we do think about it in terms of, it's a kind of last resort. It's a when you, okay, I cannot keep this boundary in place of keeping everyone safe. I can't do that in any other way. So, but I'm still going to maintain that safety. So then I have to call the police. But like you say, if you have supporters, other ways, other mechanisms you have of keeping that safety, then of course use those first if you can. But yeah, it's the same idea essentially.
I want to talk a little bit about the stigma, because I do believe by talking about stigma, it helps to crush the stigma. And
yeah,
I think child on parent violence is slowly starting to gain a bit more awareness, but it doesn't have the same awareness as domestic violence. And obviously there's still a lot of shame around domestic violence and stigma around that. But I wondered if you could just talk about, where does child and parent violence lie in relationship to things like domestic violence?
Well, there's a lot of discussion still going on around that. So, I think when a child reaches 16, then it becomes domestic violence. Before that, on their 15th, when they're 15 and however many days, then it's treated as a separate issue. I think the difficulty is that children, there is a very different dynamic at play in a child parent-child relationship than an intimate partner relationship, and that can't be ignored. So our feeling is that they are not the same things. This is not just domestic violence and you lump it in the same. There are very different drivers often, and there are very different ways of managing this behavior. So that is that. In terms of dealing with the stigma around it, yeah, there is a lot of stigma, because so often when parents have asked for help, so often when this is being discussed, it's been, well, it's a lack of boundaries, it's a lack of parenting skills, it's you're obviously doing something wrong, you shouldn't, why did you do that, you should. And of course that's going to add to stigma and shame, because that is what's in our minds. We also have this image of the way most of us have been parented, and there's this very clear power dynamic. The parent is up here, the child is down here, and if that gets inverted in any way, well, are you weak? Is that the problem? Are you a weak person? You're a weak parent? So there is a lot of stigma around it, and I think that it's so important that we have conversations like this, because the truth is, if only life was that black and white and so simple. There are so many reasons why this happens, but at the bottom of all of it normally is the fact that there is some real difficulty in a child's life. There is something happening in that child's life that they are not able to cope with, they cannot tolerate, and using this behavior is sometimes the last thing available to them to try and affect some kind of change. Now, a lot of the work that we do with parents is trying to work out where is that difficulty, because often the link between the difficulty and the behavior, I mean, it's not a straight line. It goes all around the house and it's wiggling, and it can be really hard to work out, why we're seeing this behavior. But there is nearly always a reason why at the bottom of it. We always come back to those reasons why. And that, I spoke about neurodivergence before. Sometimes it is a child is neurodivergent and they are not coping with being a neurodivergent person, trying to live in the neurotypical world, in a world that's traumatic for them, that they have to go into every day, that hurts them and and essentially causes them distress. It may be that a child is living with a bereavement that they don't know how to cope with, that they haven't been helped with, that they're trying to manage it on their own. And very often it comes back to a problem in the child's life that's too big for them to cope with, that they don't know how to cope with it. And maybe those around them haven't understood the severity of that problem, because that child isn't able to communicate it. So no one's at fault here, no one's at blame here, but there is a reason why. There's something at the base of it. So it isn't a parenting. It's not the fact you're a bad parent. It isn't the fact that you've been too lax with rules or boundaries. It isn't the fact that it's not simple in those terms. But
Yeah,
what is simple, there is something at the root of it. There is a problem somewhere. So we have to try and get to that.
and I particularly dislike that boundary narrative, because my experience and how I got into NVR, and I know lots of NVR practitioners have had a similar journey to me, it was actually reducing some of those boundaries that actually stopped that violent behavior. It was, she had too many boundaries on her, too many demands. And actually we practice in NVR the baskets, where we prioritize. It's basically a system of prioritizing demands on your child. And when you take those demands away, it can look like you're relaxing boundaries. I mean, you're not, you still have boundaries there,
course,
but you're just in, and I talk to the parents that I work with, like they're saying, well, we had this massive fight every time I ask him to clean his room. And I'm, well, stop asking him to clean his room then, the world is going to end. And so actually some kids need less boundaries.
Absolutely.
You still have boundaries, but you let some of them go. And for me, that was when the violence and aggression started disappearing.
100%. Now, I mean, I talk to parents a lot, and at the start, a lot about this. And at the start of when we're working together, there's often this, but they need to learn. They need to learn the consequence to this action, or that they need to they need to tidy their room, and this chore is their job, and I say, for many children that works, and that's fine, and having this traditional approach is perfect, and they'll flourish with that. But what happens when that doesn't work? What happens when you put boundaries in place and you're really firm with them, and the child is not managing with it? And so you put more boundaries, and you put more pressure, and you create more conflict in your relationship, because you're saying, you haven't done this thing, and the child's basically saying, I can't do this thing. And there's shame around not being able to do it. There's defiance. There's this kind of normalization of conflict. And for some children, those boundaries, and I mean, when we talk about boundaries, I mean, it's tricky, but those rules or those expectations, they can't cope with them. So it's about easing off, focusing on the relationship. When the relationship is strong, we can put more back on again. But if the relationship is not strong enough to have those expectations, if the child is struggling in other areas of their life, and they cannot, I have to talk about, our capacity for difficulty. If there's other things going on in a child's life, and their capacity, and they're up here already, and they've got this much capacity for difficulty, when we talk about those rules and those expectations, we're putting on more difficulty. And it may not be a lot, and we may say, well, you should be able to deal with that. But if you're already up here, and you go, well, now you have to do this, and I'm gonna make this demand of you, and I'm going to exert my authority over you, and I'm going to make you do something that you don't necessarily want to do, or I'm going to stop you doing something you do want to do. You have that power that's being put over that child, that for some children, if they're highly sensitive as well, that might feel threatening. We talk about PDA, for example. If a child,
Can you explain what PDA is?
Oh yeah, so
people haven't heard of that.
pathological demand avoidance. It's an anxiety-based need for control. So at the root of it, again, looking at the why, is anxiety. Anxiety-based need for control, where a child becomes demand avoidant, or a child is demand avoidant. So any demands, the child has to push back against them. They cannot, they can't tolerate it. And that can be and sometimes that is a demand that the child puts upon themselves. So I need to go to the toilet. Well, now I can't go to the toilet. It's a really difficult thing to live with.
I'm thinking that there's some people watching this right now who are thinking, this sounds like me. They're maybe just suffering in silence, and what would be the advice that you would give people to break out of their isolation and start seeking help? What are the steps people can take?
Well, obviously I would say immediately come and find us on all social media. Send us an email, come and find our website. As you said, you'll have all the links. I guess understanding that this is not your fault. This isn't because you have done something wrong. You're a bad parent. That's not it. Okay. So we can leave that. We can leave that at the door. Okay. There are things that we can do to help. There are things we can do that are, with, as with your NVR, there are proven tools that work for lots of people, that can help rebuild relationships, re-strengthen relationships, de-escalate, the conflict, lead to a kind of more harmonious, happy home, better relationships. So the first things I would say is, come and find us, come and ask for support. You will not be judged, because we understand this isn't, like I say, this is not you being a bad parent. There's something bigger going on here, and there are things that we can do to help. So get in touch. That's all I'd say. Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel that this is your fault.
That's great. Thank you. I really hope that people will listen to this and then get in touch with you. But I think that's really important what you said. If you're not quite ready to make that leap, then you've got your podcast, you've got your social media.
Yeah.
connect with that first, because sometimes that can provide a bridge, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is hard to, like, make that first call and be in that place. So yeah, those resources, and yeah, I'll link to all of those for you.
Yeah, and that's it. Go and listen to the podcasts. We, like I said, we have the parent forum, which is every 6 weeks, which you can come and have a listen, like listen to us talking. You don't have to have your camera. It's all over Zoom. You don't have to have your camera on. You don't have to have your name on the screen. You can be anonymous. You can just listen, and see what other parents are saying, see what we're saying. Currently, we're also doing a weekly drop-in as well, on a Thursday afternoon. Come along to those. Check out the YouTube channel, the podcast, the Instagram, the Facebook. There's lots that you can find before you actually even have to talk to us. But we're a nice bunch. Come and have a chat. Like we'll we'd love to have a chat with you. We'd love to kind of start that conversation, because this is one of the hardest things that a parent can face. It is to face this behavior from a child. It is unbelievably hard, and you shouldn't have to suffer on your own. You shouldn't have to suffer in silence, and you don't need to. And yeah, you won't be judged. You won't be blamed. So let's have a conversation.
That's great. Well, you've got such a lovely, calm demeanor, Matt, that I hope that people will believe everything that you've just said. And I know that I wish I'd known about you when I was going through my struggles as well. And you can come out of them, because I have. My daughter rarely has meltdowns now, and all that violence has completely gone. There is
Yeah,
light at the end of the tunnel. So thank you so
absolutely.
much for coming on and talking to people today, and sharing everything. And yeah, I hope people do reach out.
Yeah, no worries. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you as well, Esther. And yeah, please do reach out, because we're here.